Welcome to the St. Matthew's Episcopal Church podcast, coming to you from Northern Virginia. We're so glad you're here. Today, we hope our message inspires you to better know and share God's love. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and join our weekly newsletter, The Friday Flash, to stay updated on all of our events and services. Let's dive in.
Well, the story is told, and you may have heard this story before in one version or another, but of a woman who had a parrot. And she was distressed by this parrot because the line that this parent had learned and repeated over and over again is, "I'm a lonely girl and I just want to have some fun." And so when her Episcopal priest visited her in her home, the parrot, true to form, said, "I'm a lonely girl and I just want to have some fun." The woman was embarrassed and said, "I'm so sorry, Father, for my bird. I don't know where my bird picked this up. It's a bad habit. I don't know what to do about it." And the priest said, "Well, I actually think I can help you with that. I have two..." That's okay. Yeah, that's okay. No problem. He said, "I have two parrots, and two boy parrots. And what I did is I had little miniature books of common prayer made for them. And I put them in the cage. And over the years, they've actually memorized many of the prayers and scriptures. And so they know a lot of prayers. They know a lot of scripture. So I think we need to do is we need to bring your parrot over and put it in with my parrots. They'll teach her how to pray and quote scripture, and it'll solve her from her bad habits." And the woman said, "Oh, Father, could we do that, please?" And he said, Sure. Bring your parrot over." So the next day she brought her parrot over, and they brought the parrot into the house, put it in with the priest parrots, and the girl parrot right on cue said, "I'm a lonely girl. I just want to have fun." To which one of the boy parrots looked at the other parrot and said, "It's time to throw away our prayer books, Frank. Our prayers have been answered." Oh, I like that one. I'd never heard that one before, so I thought that was pretty good. Well, today we want to talk about virtue. We want to talk about virtue, values, and how that becomes character. And our jumping off point is going to be the Beatitudes. And the Beatitudes are those first several verses in the book of Matthew, which we heard read today, all start with blessed. And blessed just basically means to know that God is with you. That's the whole idea. Happiness really doesn't capture it, although a person who knows that God is with them is the person who's going to have a positive outlook on life. But when the wish is for somebody to be blessed, it's that they'll know that God is absolutely with them. And there are probably as many interpretations of the Beatitudes as there are people who have interpreted the Beatitudes. But the one that I like the very best comes from a guy by the name of Dallas Willard, who has just so many good things to say. And he says that what he believes Jesus did when he was sharing the Beatitudes with people is that he was looking over this vast crowd, and he was looking at people who felt like God was far, far from them. And he was assuring them that God was with them. So he would look out and he would say, "Blessed are those who are poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And when he did that, he was actually looking at somebody who felt themselves to be poor in spirit. And because they felt themselves to be poor in spirit, they felt like God must be far, far from them. But what Jesus wanted this person to know is that God was with them, and in this moment, realizing their need, they were actually in a better position to have a relationship with God than someone who feels like they don't need anything. Someone who feels like they've got it all figured out. And in doing this and pointing to this person who's pointing in spirit and saying God's with you, he was asking that person to reevaluate their priorities as he asks us to reevaluate our priorities. What do we value more? Having it all together? And think of so many of our conversations where what we want to do is convince people that we have it all together, that our kids have it all together, that our marriages have it all together, or that we are poor in spirit. Man, we could really use some help. This is what Jesus says when he says, the sick, they don't need the people who are well, they don't need a physician. But people who are sick, they know they need a physician. So when we're poor in spirit, just like we sang in that song, I love that song. The people who are poor in spirit know they need God. And in that, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And then I think he looked out, and I think he probably looked at somebody who was mourning. You know, I think he looked at someone who was mourning and said, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." And you think about our culture, and you think about what do we value. And what we tend to value are people with great big pearly white smiles, right? What we'd call plastic happiness. But we don't tend to value sorrow. And people who are in the midst of sorrow, people who are in the midst of grief, they often feel like they're somehow being punished, like they've done something wrong, or and there were whole theologies that said, you know, if you're feeling bad, that's because you did something bad. But Jesus is saying, he's looking right at the people who are feeling sorrow, people who are feeling grief, and saying, God is with you. And he's saying that because in the midst of our sorrow, again, is that place where we're in, for you'll be comforted. I mean, the promise is that maybe not right now, maybe not in this moment, but you will be comforted. God will, in some way, shape, or fashion, in time, bring comfort into your life. And so again, you can think of how we often lead. We often lead with everything's great, rather than leading with, man, I'm in a place of deep sorrow. I'm hurting right now. I could use somebody to come alongside me. And Jesus himself was described as a person of sorrows. One of my heroes in life, in the top three, I mean, Jesus would be in the first, as you'd expect, but top three has always been Abraham Lincoln. And Abraham Lincoln was a man who was just consumed with melancholy. But he didn't ever let it get the best of him. He used it as fuel to burn, believing that it would one day come to a good place. And this is the last one we'll do, but we could do this for each of these, and we actually did do this at our Bible studies Wednesday night and Thursday. And if this kind of stuff interests you, love for you to join us. But the last one, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. And again, I think he was looking out at the congregation, and I think he was probably looking at somebody who was a very meek person, a person who maybe felt like they are too often just a doormat, a person who feels like everybody sort of walks all over them or whatever it may be. And that day, in the shadow of Rome, I mean, and just like in our day, nobody valued meekness. What they value is power, right? Everybody wants power, you know, here, now. And what Jesus was doing, he's looking at somebody who wasn't at all powerful, who was weak, who in their weakness was thinking, God must be far from me. I'm kind of pathetic. You know, I'm kind of a pathetic person. But Jesus looked at them saying, you're not pathetic. Because in that meekness, it's not the powerful who will ultimately inherit the earth. It's the meek. Because those are the people who learn what it means to serve other people. They're not riding their sense of entitlement. They're not riding their self-righteousness. They're not riding their I'm better from this group or that group, whatever it is. They're just saying, I want to serve. And if that makes me a doormat, that's okay. I just want to serve. How can I serve? How can I serve? I mean, right? And Jesus is saying, man, that's at the heart of a kingdom. Not entitlement, not smug self-righteousness, not any of this I'm better than you, however it's practiced. And so in pointing this out, Jesus is asking people to reevaluate. He's saying real specifically, God is with you in the most unlikely circumstances where people didn't feel like God is with them at all. He wanted to recognize that God is with them. And in so doing, challenging people to think about what it is they really value. And so in this sense, these Beatitudes still speak to us because God would still say to us, God is with you. Blessed are the anxious, for they will find calm. Right? I think Jesus might have said that today. Because if we can learn to sit with our anxiety and to find what it is that's making us anxious and to draw the support around us that we need to move through it, ultimately, that has the promise to make us, to grow us. I mean, to grow us as people, as compassionate individuals. And so Jesus, in these, it wasn't just asking the people then to know that God's with us. He's assuring us that God is with us wherever we are. And he wasn't just asking them to reevaluate what they value, but asks us to reevaluate what we value. And so in life, we start with values, and values are what we prioritize, you know, or what matters most to us. And our values are what really matters most to us. It's not What we say matters most to us, but it's what really matters most to us. And they do talk about aspirational values. The people who write on values, Angela Duckworth, Marty Seligman, are two who come right to mind. They talk about aspirational values. And what they'll say is you can have a value to which you aspire, but for it to become a part of your character, you have to practice it. It has to be embodied. It has to be enacted. So I can say I value generosity, and they've done meta-studies actually over the whole globe of looking at what every society that we know anything about value, about what people actually value. And in every one of those value studies, all cultures, in one of the top values is always generosity. But people can say I value generosity, but if they're not actually giving anything away, then that's simply an aspirational value. It never makes us into our character. We're not generous. I mean, that makes sense, right? I can say I value generosity, but if I'm not practicing it over and over on a regular basis, I'm actually not generous. But I actually think I disagree with that. I think if we say we value generosity, we're not practicing, we just actually don't. I don't think we actually value generosity. You can go either way, aspirational, and need to work it into our calendar, or we have a different value and we need to do the self-work to find out what we really do value. And if we really want it to be generosity, then replace that other thing with that. That's up to you. But character comes when we embody, when we enact our values. And that requires us of doing the hard work of identifying what our values are. Again, reflecting on our values, not always what we say they are. And then practicing our values. Because, let's stick with generosity for a moment. A person never arrives in generosity. A value, becoming character, it's a lifelong process. Right? I'm generous today, but I want to be more generous tomorrow, and I want to be more generous when I die. And kindness, I might be kind now, but I haven't arrived in kindness. I want to be more kind in a year. I want to be kinder when we're always growing in these sorts of things. And so the only way that happens is if we practice them. So we have to find situations that give us opportunity to practice over and over again the things that we truly value. And then as we practice those things, we want people to be able to experience wins in those things, to experience and then build confidence that this is the right path, that this is in fact who we want to be, and we want to expose people to people who share those values so we can see those values in action and see the difference that they make. And so for me, actually, one of my values really is being generous. But this may surprise you. Generosity doesn't always feel good to me, and it actually is something that I don't always want to practice. And so I've developed a practice to help me grow my generosity muscle, if you will. That I've been practicing, for decades. And right up front, St. Matthew's, we have certain hopes for everybody. And these are hopes for you, not from you. These are things that we really believe make the best life. And so we hope that everybody will will make our giving a priority in such a way that we frankly go online, make an online commitment like we would with any other payment, our entertainment payments or whatever they are, on a monthly basis, have people give to St. Matthew's. We used to make that clear. I don't know that we even talk about that anymore. But beyond that, when I put it online, which we've done, I don't feel it because it's just like I never had it. So I don't feel it. And so to feel actually handing cash away, that helps me practice my generosity muscle. And we've come to have more than we ever thought we would, so I'm not complaining in any way, shape, or form. But most of my life, we've lived in the shallow end of the income pool. And so I have often felt, and many years true, like we didn't really have enough money. Or it didn't seem like we had enough money. And so because we didn't have enough money, I really had a hard time giving money away. So what I would have to do is I started with a $10 bill. Because that's what I could give up with, right? So I'd put a $10 bill in my wallet, and then I just looked for any occasion. Like I was at the store this morning, and there was a guy who didn't have gloves, and he was out pushing carts around. He didn't speak very good English. I said, do you have gloves? And he said, no. And he said, cold? And I said, yeah. So it was an opportunity to give him some money. Get yourself some gloves, right? That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for. Just any occasion like that. But I really want to hand $10 over. So, 20, 30 years ago, $10 was really hard for me to hand over because I could have used $10 for all kinds of things. And if I did this, that didn't feel good to me. Any more than doing a set of bicep curls. Oh, no. Any more than doing a set of squats feels good to me. I always kind of like bicep curls, but squats, man, they're the pits. So, but if you do squats over time, man, you're going to get healthy and strong, right? And you're going to have great legs. So, I mean, so it's the same. My generosity muscle was weak, didn't feel good, but I knew we needed to practice it. After a while, I'd go up to $20, put $20 in my wallet. And then, again, and it would hurt a little bit, but then, and then go up to 50. Now I'm up to 100. And occasionally, if I have it, I don't often, multiples of 100, right? And so then if there's just occasions, and it still hurts me. I mean, right? I like to give, but it still hurts me to say, So it's still practicing. I'm still growing. It's a way to actually grow that generosity muscle. And in the end, embarrassing as this is, a long time ago, what I liked to do was stand in front of mirrors and make biceps, right? Because I had these big, bulgy biceps, and I thought, man, that's cool. I'm proud of myself, But in the end, will I be more proud of having made big, bulgy biceps or of having learned to have been generous? And when we set goals for ourselves, why would we set a goal to lose 5 pounds, to get fit, to do this, to do that, and not set a goal like, I want to be more generous? Right? So we're looking for opportunities to practice and for people to succeed. And so opportunities to practice, like if we wanted people to practice being kind, packing backpack buddies is a great thing to do. I'm so glad you're all here. Not as many of us are here as normal. We got to pack a whole bunch of bags. It's a chance to be kind. It's a chance to teach your children to be kind. It's a chance to let people succeed in being kind. Feel how good that is. Going on a mission trip, the same thing. So I promised, if you've seen this, I promised this week to give a simple exercise that I learned, I don't know, maybe 5 decades ago. Maybe more, maybe 6 or 7 decades ago. And yeah, probably 6 or 7 decades ago. That has served me really well my whole life long. And I learned it in the context of parenting. But since then, I've come to realize it simply applies to being a good person. And right now, I'm really into being a good human. And I really want St. Matthew's to be into being a good human. So this exercise, again, is simple. I hope you'll actually do it. And it's simply this. Make a list. And you have to write this out. This is one of those things you have to write down. So you sit down with a piece of paper or your phone and your notepad and you dictate it. I don't care how you do it. And you just start to write down the things that you value. And you'll probably have a pretty good list. Curiosity. I super value curiosity. Grit, stamina, hard work. These are all things I value. So we just start making this list of things that we value. And then what we want to do is we want to come up with our top 3. This is the exercise. And if you're particularly courageous, get it down to 2. And then if you want to be an overachiever, figure out the one that trumps them all, right? The one thing that you have to get this one thing right to get life right. And if you don't get the one thing right, life just doesn't matter. You'll never have gotten your life won't matter. What's the one thing you have to get right? And for parents, what you do is you think, these are the 2 or 3 things that my kids have to get right. I mean, that I absolutely have to build into my children's lives. This is essential. And if you can get it down to 2, all the better. Because then what that does when you're scheduling, you're not just doing what everybody else does. You're not just following the culture. But now you're really saying, okay, does this help my kid be what I want my kid to be? If it does, they're doing it, right? And if it doesn't, we're not. We're not. We don't. I don't care what anybody else thinks. We're not doing that. And it's and it's best to do this with your spouse. And for whatever reason, I initially did this on my own. Nobody told me to then have Linda do it and compare it together. So we didn't do this together. But it's far better if you do it together. And Oh, okay. Does that mean I need to shut up? Probably. That was probably an alarm. It's time for me to... So I am. I'm wrapping up. And so the 3 values that we came up with, but you come up with 3 of your own, that I really came up with is I wanted my kids, and this was the primary one. I mean, this is for me, if it didn't serve this, my kids didn't do it. And my kids did not do all kinds of things, believe me. And they grew up a little weird because they didn't do all, but I thought that was good for them. So 3 things. One is I wanted to search for the sacred. And you might expect me to say, to be Christian, I trust if they really search for the sacred, that will lead them to Jesus like it led me to Jesus. So what I mean by that is I wanted them to always be looking for that which is bigger than them. Where they find it in nature, where they find it in other people, whether they find it in, in mathematics or science, but finding that thing that's bigger than them. And connecting with it so it gives their life meaning and purpose and brings awe and wonder to every day of their lives. Right? Connecting to that in some deep way so that their lives will always have purpose and meaning. And that, I think, is the meta-narrative that gets people through life. Because what I know is everybody's going to be tested somewhere along the line. If you haven't been tested, you will be. I look out here, I know you have been. And when people, we distract ourselves, delude ourselves. When we hit those tests, man, people either come apart, start engaging in destructive behaviors, or they do what they practice to prepare for the test. And I think spirituality is the meta-narrative that holds everything else together. And without that, man, whether people know it or not, they're going to come to find that they're lost. And the worst place to find that you're lost is on your deathbed. And believe me, that happens. All right? So that was the first one. Second one, because I had 2 girls, I wanted them to be strong. Because I didn't want the world to push them around. The things that made my daughter strong. So that meant that we didn't rescue our daughters. Sometimes we did. But that meant they needed to suffer. That meant they needed to know pain. That meant they needed to discover how strong they were. And if we ran in every time and rescued them, they were never going to develop that. So it had to be crystal clear that if I wanted strong girls, and I did, and I do, and I have strong girls, that I was not going to rescue them. I was going to let them discover how strong they are, in incremental doses. Right? In incremental doses. And again, mission trips are one of the best things of all things for this because that was hard. They were scared. They were frightened. They didn't know if they could do it. My younger daughter has physical problems. It made that a great challenge. She didn't, but she did it, man. And then the final one was simply to be kind. Right? And so if this fosters kindness, we're going to do it. If it doesn't, we want nothing to do with it. And this becomes then an exercise due even as people, just as good humans. And so as life has gone on, not just as a parent, as a human being, I go back and forth to this list. And frankly, the thing that trumps all things on my list right now is simply to be kind. That is my number one filter. And, people might say it's love. I think love's too general. Remember we studied 1 Corinthians 13, love is patient, love is kind, love always believes the best, love doesn't rejoice in wrong, doesn't get angry easily. Pick one of those. Don't just say love, that's too easy. Pick one of those. And then you drill down on that. But so make this list, be clear about what you value, and then let it be the filter through which you do everything else. I don't always get this right. Again, we practice it. But for me, the filter now is it kind? If it's not kind, I want nothing to do with it. And I want that the world that I am building that gives me purpose and meaning is a world in which everyone, everywhere, all the time is kind to each other. That's the world I'm building. And I want nothing to do with a world that takes us in a different direction. So, my hope for you this morning is that you will literally take time, write out the list, talk about somebody who's close to you if it's appropriate to do so, what's on that list and what you value, and then let that have the strength, have the courage to let that be the filter by which you decide what you will and absolutely will not do. And if there's any way, shape, or form that I can support you in that, I am 100% in your corner. Amen. Amen. And now we have a song that sort of brings that all together, I think. And we want to just share that as a sort of a call to action. So just sit back and enjoy it.
Thank you for listening. If you're in the Northern Virginia area, we invite you to join us for worship or any of our events. For directions, service times, and information about our online services, visit stmtts.org. That's stmtts.org. Until next time, go in peace and share God's love.